You know, one thing that we often like to talk about is how this new wave of wokeness the world is experiencing is sort of like a religion, a false heretical religion, but a religion nonetheless. It's a curious faith that manages to integrate new beliefs quickly, such as the idea that soul-crushing lockdowns, a sort of man-made hell on earth, are the only way to coronavirus salvation, despite the increasing evidence to the contrary. It's also a religion that has its own priestly class, known as the scientists, who have worked out that the coronavirus is clever enough to know if its hosts have gathered together for a Black Lives Matter protest, in which case it won't jump from person to person, or if they have gathered to pray or support Donald Trump, in which case all bets are off. And also the God of wokeness is a jealous God who does not like competition, particularly not from the old established faiths like Christianity and Judaism, which built the very civilization that this woke religion seeks to destroy. Which brings us, as so often happens when we discuss the follies of the left, to the Jews. Now, I want to take you back to my old hometown of New York City, which is experiencing a minor second wave, but nowhere near as bad as their first wave, mostly because the feckless state governor Andrew Cuomo finally stopped sending positive COVID patients to nursing homes there to infect entire residences. True story. Now, to try to tamp down the latest set of numbers, Cuomo and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio are now declaring certain neighborhoods in the city red zones. These red zones coincidentally overlap with a lot of the city's Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods. De Blasio has also explicitly threatened to shut down synagogues, and since the start of the pandemic has singled out the Jewish community for his ire. Local rabbis and community leaders say it's unfair and part of a program of discrimination aimed at the city's religious believers, Orthodox Jews in particular. Some got so angry this week that they took to the streets and burned masks at a bonfire in protest. Of course, this is pretty tame stuff considering everything else we've seen over the past few months, but the Jewish community in New York has a point. After all, in June, at the height of the pandemic, the New York City government facilitated a very non-socially distanced rally in support of Black Trans Lives Matter. You heard me right. The New York Times was gushing about it, calling it, quote, one of the most striking demonstrations that New York has seen since the killing of George Floyd, a gathering of thousands of people in a sea of white. Its size and intensity stunned bystanders, participants, and the organizers themselves. Bless. Fast forward to this week, where the New York Times tut-tutted about how affected Orthodox communities rarely wear masks. Oddly, there was none of such concern at the Black Trans Lives Matter rally, of course, and other newspapers have reflected this narrative of the new religion of woke. Here's the Washington Post talking about how New York Jews, quote, violent protests. They didn't even earn the infamous mostly peaceful moniker. And here's the Washington Post on George Floyd protests, calling them huge peaceful protests that mark anti-racism demonstrations across the globe. Yeah, they're about as peaceful as getting hit in the head with a brick. Now, all this is important for a number of reasons. One, it shows that once again, Jewish populations are copying the blame from the left and are again being scapegoated, this time in New York, this time for the coronavirus. It's dangerous behavior on the part of New York's leaders and something which they should be condemned by thoughtful people of any faith or no faith around the globe. But it also shows the clown world we are in now with the coronavirus and how once the activist left, corporate media, HR departments, and even scientists came to the conclusion that the BLM protests were worthy and virtuous and woke, the rules that they would force on the rest of us suddenly didn't apply.